Yay. And so Marjorie, I am going to make you the spotlight in just a moment. I'm still letting people in. And I want to welcome everybody. I'm super excited to celebrate with Marjorie Maddox today and to have such a wonderful group. I'm seeing a lot of people I haven't gotten to see in a while. And then also from last week, if you missed it, I'm so sorry, but Lynn Levin is here and Lilith may show up maybe for open mic, I don't know. But if you missed her book launch with Carolyn Wright, you can watch it on YouTube. And then Angie Dribbin's here. She's going to be doing a book launch as well. Marjorie has been very busy. She has 2 books that we're celebrating tonight, which is fantastic. So one, you may have already seen, I put all the information in the chat section so you can go to her website and read more, because I'm sure you're going to want to look up. She has over 11 books published, and besides the 2 that came out during the pandemic, she also has one coming out 2021. And so we will be working with inside out poems on writing and reading poems with insider exercises, which is awesome. And then a children's book. So you can pick her brains about a variety of topics. Thanks, Robbie, for putting that in there. And I do, Marjorie, where do you prefer people to purchase the book or books?
You can purchase them a couple different places. Inside Out comes from Kelsey Books, so you can go to their website. It's also on Amazon, both US and UK, and it's also at Bookshop. And then I'm Feeling Blue too is at Amazon and Bookshop, and also at Whiff and Stock, the publishers.
Perfect. And are you doing any way for people to get signed books, or not really? A lot of people are not able to
thought about it, but I could.
Okay, so somebody could reach out directly to you via Facebook or your website if that was something like they wanted to get a Christmas present for children's book, I'm Feeling Blue too, or one of your poetry books.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to make you the spotlight first, and then you will be the host. There we go.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It's great to see so many familiar faces, and a big thanks to Malika and so many others who have just been really generous during this pandemic for those who have had new books out. It's a little trying, you know, but people have been extremely generous and welcoming, and allowed us to reach audiences that maybe we wouldn't have met otherwise. So I wanted to spend a little time with you, and I'm going to share my screen, introducing you to this new book, which is geared toward young adults, middle graders, parents, their teachers, but really anyone who's the slightest bit interested in poetry. And many of you know students or know young adults or middle graders who love writing poetry. You know, they carry their notebook around scribbling verses and poems. And I was one of those kids. But then there's others who, poetry, not so much. And this book really tries to invite them into poetry, inside the poem, to get them interested, to take away some of that intimidation, take away some of that fear. So I start with how to see a poem, how to hear a poem, taste, smell, touch a poem, to bring them closer to the poem. You know, and in a time period where we can't hug people as much as we like to, you can still hug a poem, right? So this is a way to kind of bring them close and to really discuss what a poem is. Befriending a poem. Then I talk about different poetic techniques by writing poems about them. So instead of just having kind of boring definitions, they read a poem about a pun or about onomatopoeia. And then I move on to a series of poems about how to write fixed forms. So how to write an English sonnet, that's an English sonnet. How to write an Italian sonnet, that's an Italian sonnet. And then I end with a series of really interactive, fun exercises that I've used at the university level, my day job as a university professor, but I also do a lot of school visits. So I've gone into elementary schools and middle schools, high schools, and kind of tweaked these exercises for different age levels. So here's one. How to see a poem. Close your eyes. What swims behind your lids lights imagination. Sometimes you'll recognize flecks of what is or what was. Sometimes specks of speculation will filter in, or fine strands of never, never land will land in the inner world of mind. Just keep not looking into what's expected until you're free to see with vision that's beyond the ordinary. So this is a great way to start talking with students about what a poem is, what it could be, how you can write about anything you really want to write about. And you'll see how to hear a poem. It's shaped like the canal of your ear. Befriending a poem. Invite him home for dinner, but don't insist on rhyme. He may be as tired and as overworked as his distant cousin cliché. Best to offer intriguing conversation that's light on analysis. Allow for silences and spontaneity. Most importantly, like any good friend, be faithful and patient. Remember to listen. Sometimes he's shy and just needs a little time and coaxing. Much of what he has to say lies between the lines. And then I'll encourage students to take the poem to a place that's kind of their home turf. And nowadays, maybe it's even their backyard or their room or a park. And then to maybe write a poem that allows them to interact with it. So, you know, a poem texts me and says, talking back to a poem. Then poems that, again, define specific poetic terms, a way to teach. A little pun, a little jack-in-the-box joke waiting to spring its double meaning. Dramatic monologue. Step into the words and become a prince, a pauper, a piece of popcorn, a philosophical panda, a paranoid piano. Flip forward or backward in time as Cleopatra or the president of Mars. No one will interrupt. The podium is yours. Go ahead and pontificate. And here's the poem about personification. All night, Dr. Poet, you sort through cartloads of dissected lines and post-mortem poems abandoned mid-century to the morgue of your mind. In the dim light of your underground laboratory, you toil over brainy ballads, eye-catching images, light-footed metaphors saturated with sound, your grand experiment in diction. As dawn pokes her fingers in, you painstakingly stitch heart to soul, breathe the hum of humanity into your creature's realistic lungs. It's no lie, he's alive. Pinch his cheek and personification speaks. And then one on onomatopoeia, and I have an exercise where they act out some of the words, so bah, bark, you know, things like that, wink. And then how to write an English sonnet, again, that's an English sonnet. How to write an Italian sonnet, that's an Italian sonnet. How to text a triolet. And here's how to write a villanelle. And as you know, the lines are repeated in a villanelle, the first and third lines alternated, and then you end up with both of those lines in the final quatrain. To write a villanelle, think like a bird that soars and swoops in 7 different ways and sings a song that you've already heard, returning to its favorite branch to perch. Become a sparrow light and quick and gray to write a villanelle. Think how the bird salutes you every morning undeterred from trilling what it always wants to say within its favorite song. The one you've heard so many times, you suddenly are stirred to listen closer still, to find the way to write a villanelle. Just like a bird that flits across your vision in a blur and leaves the sound of beauty in its trail, still singing songs that you've already heard. Next time you want to fly away on words, remember what we talked about this day. To write a villanelle, think like a bird that sings a song that you've already heard.
Yeah.
And then fishing for sestinas, which, as you know, repeats 6 words in a set pattern, and then all 6 of the words are repeated in the final tercet. And this is also a poem to talk about the process of writing and the discoveries that you encounter in writing. At first, there is only the paper, as plain as sleep without the dream, as flat as the sea without its waves, no sound, no ripple, no fish slipping in and out so suspiciously. Ah, now write that, not worrying about wrong or right, but only what floats up to your paper, what your fishing pole of a pencil tugs so deliciously toward your eyes. Dream of letters swishing their fins, of fish bright as summer minutes, of waves that twist and flip and cha-cha-cha. Wave hello and reel them in. Words are your net. Write 1,000 buckets full of fish that flip about, splash till you and your paper are soaked with poems and all they dream. Too many? No need to even sew up the holes. The poems themselves sew together our world, the way fish and waves thread themselves in and out, the way dreams swim their own stories, can write themselves below the surface, the way paper can catch even the smallest fish floating within your mind. Let's fish together on quiet afternoons, so still you hear the whisper of bluegills. With their paper-thin scales, they rise above the waves of your thoughts, trying to write up their own storm of images. Let's dream this water together, this lake of dreams brimming full of rainbows, rainbow rhyming fish that glitter as they leap. Let's write the entire salty ocean so full of creatures, they surf the waves, then scuttle across the flat sand of paper. Ah, the joy of pencil and paper that dream such jubilant waves, that fish for syllables so splendid, we cast our lines and write.
Wow.
And then how to write yourself out of a paper bag. So you could talk about writer's block. Sharpen your pencil and your wit. Bring a flashlight and a watch you can depend on, not to interrupt. And then again, there's all these different exercises that are directly connected to the poems themselves. So here's just a quick summary of one of them, talking about concrete and abstract language, where I will have students, I usually do this with a hat and have students write down an abstract word, something that you cannot see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. Pick a word. And then I have them brainstorm a little bit about it. What do they see, hear, smell, taste, touch? What animal is it? What color is it? Is it connected to some kind of a memory? And then draft a poem of an abstract word, but they're not allowed to use the abstract word anywhere in the poem. And then they read it aloud to their group members or their partner. They don't tell them the abstract word, and they see if their partner or group members can guess the word from the descriptions that they used of it. And so I've seen some really great writing done with this exercise. Okay, so that's kind of a quick look at Inside Out. And then I also wanted to show, that came out in April 1st, and I'm Feeling Blue Too came out August 1st, illustrated by Philip Huber. Philip and I worked on a previous book together, A Crossing of Zebras, Animal Packs and Poetry, which came out from Boyd's Mills Press in 2005, 2006, something like that. Went out of print and just came back into print in December of this last year, along with Rules of the Game baseball poems, which came back into print. So a lot of stuff kind of going on. But Philip, this book was kind of a long time in the making. Philip began this book when he was in college and he just retired. He and I teach at the same university. And in many ways, this was an ekphrastic exercise for me because he had already finished all the illustrations, and then he called me in to help him with the illustration, with the narrative, with the poems that go with the book. So I think this is a book, even though it was started a long time ago, and I came in kind of on the tail end of it, and it was came out, well, it was accepted for publication and written before the pandemic. I think it's a book that really kind of speaks to our situation today because it's about a little boy who is kind of stuck inside and wants to get out and discover the color blue. So it's in part a riddle book, all the different places that you can find the color blue. But I had to kind of start by thinking, okay, in this opening illustration, what is the narrative that speaks to me? And so that's kind of the narrative that I came up with. So we start out with kind of this light coming in. I think there's some hope in the book. It can speak to the idea of depression, but there's also that sense of hope. Hey, you got those summertime slumps down in the dumps, life full of bumps, bad news, blues? Time to get up and shake up the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Time to get the can't do nothing out of blue. Time to zap the sad with some kaleidoscope clues. Come on, whistle for blue and get moving. Get ready, get set, guess blue. And then he finds blue sweaters for himself and for his dog. And he has blueberries at breakfast. And I love this scratchboard technique that Philip uses. And if any of you, when you were a kid, you used to do those ink and crayon drawings and you kind of scratch off the ink. This is kind of a sophisticated version of that, a very sophisticated version. It's very time consuming, but I think it's so textured. And I also love how a lot of the illustrations go over the entire spread. So I tried to make the poems kind of fit in with the illustration. So I used a lot of kind of shaped poems here. A miniature morsel of midnight that pops into your mouth like a morning parade of pancakes, syrup, muffins, mixed together with yum that hits your stomach with a happy sigh and leaves just enough room for pie. And here he's trying to reach the sky on a trampoline. Don't look so down, it's time to escape the brown of ground and every heavy, boring sigh. So lift your chin toward my azure sky. The trampoline's launching pad awaits 10, 9, 8, legs like springs, arms like wings. 7, 6, 5, bounce high, I'm clear up here. 4, 3, 2, in the atmosphere. Blast off blue. And he thinks about getting inside of a bubble, blowing bubbles, going, of course, to the ocean. And this book, I really wanted to emphasize, and the illustrations spoke to me in this way, the different parts of our personality. You see that very kind of active young boy, running and jumping and doing things, but there's also that contemplative side. So I wanted to emphasize that as well. Here we have him looking at flowers. And then there's a kind of a nod in this poem to the scientific, because we have the formal kind of Latin terms for different blue flowers. And then there's a poem within a poem. Petals pollinate periwinkle and asters of azure, so many flowers, so many blues. And this poem and the next one are kind of companion poems where I worked with the meter. My whistle sings spring, sings sky, sings follow my flutter of wings up high into twigs. It's time to deliver another sweet treat of crickets, mulberries, and bees. My flutter flaps summer and hums to the blue firs and strums with cicadas and hovers by still lakes and lights near a finger of a boy with a sweater I swear is the same as the deep summer blue of my eyes. And I also wanted to emphasize the importance of creativity in the book. Painting and dancing and moving and building and storytelling. And so here we have the paint kind of splattering across the 2-page spread, and then all these different things that you can paint that are the color blue. And I think this is actually my favorite poem because it speaks to that idea of the choices that we make when we're creating something and how we have, something to hold afterwards. So decisions take precision, precision takes patience, patience takes weighing the would and the could be's. Weighing takes wondering how high and what color and what would be better, this one or the other. Wandering makes block after block of a dream, and dreams create castles from whatever we see when we first use precision to weigh and decide what to make from a block or a stone or a life. And then the book ends at the end of the day with the little boy reading by flashlight, which I'm sure many of us did when we were younger. By the glow of a flashlight, steel blue knights attack nightmarish dragons, deliver castles and kingdoms from fiery doom, then celebrate with scrumptious feasts all before midnight. By the glow of a flashlight, late night heroes tumble into joyful slumber, their bright imaginations as shiny as knights riding triumphantly toward new horizons. By the glow of a flashlight, by the flash of a story, by the light of a dream galloping across landscapes of make-believe, we don ancient armor, bravely face each night's tales of adventure. So thank you very much for listening. And that's kind of what I've been doing this last little bit.
I'm trying. That was lovely. Oh, you had tons of comments because people were really enjoying. Y'all can unmute and clap. And also, whenever you turn over co-host, I think there's somebody waiting in the waiting room. So I'll let them in.
So I just made you host again.
Thank you, Marjorie.
Oh.
And yep, here's a couple people that I'll let in right now so they can join us. But I did want to say what fun your book is. And a lot of people were saying the same thing I was, which is there's a playfulness that's lovely. And then I had a question. Did you write all the poems in that book?
Oh, yes.
I mean, that's just impressive. And did you
write
write
on a
them
roll
specifically for that, or were there poems that you had written that you could then use? Or I was just wondering about the process.
For which book?
For the first
Blue
one,
book.
Writing Inside Out.
For the, you know, I do like to write series. So I have this book of baseball poems, a children's book on baseball poems, and they're all kind of explaining different baseball terminology, baseball techniques. And so I just kind of used a book, you know, a reference book, and then went through and wrote kind of metaphorical interpretations. I have a series of body part poems that are kind of similar. So once I start a series, I'm kind of on a roll, and it's nice
awesome.
because you're not looking at a blank page anymore. You know, it's more like writing a story in that aspect, because you're already going, you're already generating.
Yeah, clearly it's a process that works very well for you. I want to get to another one of the, your pleasure in the writing is evident, is what Joan just said. And I think that's what we're all responding to, is that joy and that playfulness, that sense of humor. Rob the co-editor just wrote wonderful work, and it is such fun, like Susanna was saying. Now, when you were talking about the Blue, the second book, you said that you oftentimes were looking, so they were ekphrastic poems.
Well, in some ways, because all the illustrations were already done.
Yeah.
You know, often with children's literature, you have the poems first, and then the illustrator comes in and illustrates the poems. But this worked backwards.
That's what I was thinking. I was understanding. Oh, that's amazing.
So I had a general sense of the narrative, but I had to kind of fill in what I saw between the brushstrokes, if you will.
Yeah, and they were amazing, and it worked very well. I love that you use a lot of slant rhymes and internal rhymes. It really moves the poem so beautifully. People feel free to jump in and ask questions.
I have to say a shout out to my friend, Linda, because I haven't seen you for like, what, 35 years? So just quick shout out.
In gallery view so you can see everybody at once.
Yes, I did. I just put myself in gallery view.
Okay, good. That's what I was hoping. Lynn wrote, I adored the Villanelle and loved the right play in the Sestina. Michelle said, these poems are super, Marjorie. I love the accessible, playful tone. What great models for teachers. I did want to get to, I thought there was another question. Did I miss somebody's question? Let's see. I want to make sure I didn't miss something. Did the artist have a clear idea what the narrative was before you became involved, or did you develop that together, was Robbie's question?
Well, that's kind of interesting because I think we have interpreted his illustrations a little bit differently. You know, he and I were recently talking, and we were doing an event where I was talking about how I thought it was connected to the pandemic, and you know, was even listing it under with a tag about depression to use for kids to kind of talk about some of the issues and things like that. But he saw it as very happy and uplifting. But you know, that opening poem kind of bridges those two things, I think.
It does.
So
Percy said, I love these books. I volunteer with kids who have cognitive disabilities, and these books would be
Oh.
perfect for what I do with them.
great, great. And I was thinking of your question before, I could even do postcards or something like that and send them to people. That might be easier since they, you know, don't necessarily have a ton of books here, but yeah.
Yeah, see, that would be lovely then. So if you did want her to sign, you could get, you know, maybe the postcard and get the book from elsewhere. That's a nice thing to be able to put into the book itself. That's lovely. Well, people feel free to unmute. Let's go ahead and clap again. And I know there's probably some questions. I'm trying to multitask with looking through the chat section. Thank you so much, Marjorie.
Oh,
That was
good to see
amazing.
all of you. Thank you for coming.
I love this new book, Marjorie.
I'm sorry. Sure.
I've been in Marjorie's class twice, and I've thoroughly enjoyed her and her poetry. I was in her class through the St. David's Christian Writers Conference. And of course, I own several of your books, your baseball book and your wonderful book about the animals.
The Crossing of
Did you do
Zebras.
that book on the animals by seeing the pictures first and then writing the poems? Did you do it that way too?
Yes, that was pretty much that way. There were a couple of things that Philip changed for me. For instance, I needed something to rhyme with moon. So I put a loon in the poem, and there wasn't a loon in the illustration. So he added one for me.
Oh, good.
So
That
there was
blue
some,
book
you know,
is
there was some
wonderful.
collaboration.
It was so cool to take the
Fantastic
writer's
poem.
workshop at the Highlights Foundation in Honesdale and go into the library and see Margie and Philip's book there. And I bragged about that all week long.
Great. That's great.
Yeah, I think that Robbie just really hit the nail on the head. You're so inventive, Marjorie. I'll bet you like to write prompts. That's something that would come natural to you in general.
I do. And in fact, we're Jerry Wemple, a poet near me, and I are taking submissions now for an updated version of Commonwealth Contemporary Poets on Pennsylvania anthology that we did from Penn State Press in 2005, and we're working on a 20th anniversary edition. But we're hoping to include some writing prompts with that as well. It's a book that I actually use, and Lynn's poem is in there, and Shirley's poem is in there, and maybe some other people that I'm not seeing right now. But it's a fun book to use in class, and I do enjoy kind of writing those prompts. So.
I was thrilled to hear from you today that one of your students used my groundhog poem.
Yes. I have my introduction to literature students use this book because it's also another book that makes poetry more inviting to them, because they're poems about their home state, and most of the students in my classes are from Pennsylvania. So it's you know, an easy way for them to kind of step into poetry.
I like that it's obvious to me that your hope is to inspire. And I think that's part of why your humor and that engaging style really draws people in. It's lovely. Somebody else was just saying that they use your anthology several times. I'm trying to get back to that. Okay, Lisa said, I'm a fan of your PA anthology. Oh, yeah, and you are still taking poems. Robbie had asked, and Lisa said the deadline is in December. Dawn said, I teach workshops to middle school students and high school students, as well as adults, and I've used Inside Out several times. I love it. You could gather some of this just for, yeah, that's fantastic. So if you have a question, jump in. Robbie, it sounds like you had a question about the anthology.
Yeah, whether she will accept previously published poems, because I have one that might work about when I was in 3rd grade. I took a field trip to Betsy Ross's house because I'm from Philadelphia, and it's a funny poem. Everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, as long as you own the rights.
I own the rights.
Oh.
Okay, I'll send it.
Yeah, I really wanted to see all the prompts too. When you gave us one, I was like, yeah, that's a great way to start talking about, like, you know, getting used to writing metaphors, thinking from abstract, and then bringing it. Lovely. Great way in. Thank you. All right. I think I've gone through most of the chat section. If I missed something, please, people jump in, because I'm a fast reader, but when I multitask, sometimes I'll miss a question and I don't want to do that. Okay, I think I've done it. Well, thank you so very much, Marjorie. I'm super excited. I think for my daughter, who always loves writing, this will be a good book to
Oh,
hand to
wonderful.
for Christmas.
Great.
All right, guys, thank you very much. And so I have a couple people written down for open mic, and let me just run through the names. I do know when I'm supposed to pause. So I've written that beside that, but right now I have Joan, Laura, and Christy.
I think I said that if I could go before 1/4 of.
Oh, sure, Robbie. Thank you. I must have missed that. That's why I want people to jump in, because I don't want to miss somebody for open mic either. Susanna, are you reading? Hi, Karen.
No, I wasn't going to.
Okay. And Karen, you raised your hand, yes? All right. Did I miss anything? Lynn, did Lilith want to talk?
Yeah, Lilith will join in and put me last, so everybody else who's raised their hand, you know, if there's no time, I get it.
All right. Anybody? Oh, Shirley, are you raising your hand?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I'm known for signing people up who did not want to read. So just checking. All right, guys. Well, fantastic. So Robbie, why don't you go ahead and go first? And you are okay. I don't see your message. So do you want me to pause it?
No,
Okay.
no. This poem has just appeared in Redheaded magazine. Oops. Okay. It's called Cooking Your Way Home. Today, while morning light still slants onto the cold tile floor, when the house is quiet, put on some John Prine tunes. Lay out ingredients for a recipe you've cut out of the paper every year but never made. Salmon gefilte fish. At the farmer's market, choose thick bouquets of dill and parsley, woody twigs of thyme. Later, under your knife, their fragrance will bring the market home. Your mother thought that jarred was good enough. You disagree. There's never been a live carp swimming in your bathtub, as in your grandmother's. Instead, use a food processor, boxed matzo meal, not just the brunt of a blunt knife, not even half as sharp as hers. Now, when you're spending so much time alone, it's time to savor the intention, joined with generations of women making the same dish for 100 years, dropping soft fistfuls of fish bound with beaten egg into the broth, feather light and sweet.
Lovely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Robbie. That image of the carp in the bathtub is sticking with me. That's lovely.
Especially
you very
coming
much.
from the belly of a
Joan,
whale.
I am coming to you. Yeah, exactly. Those are from the belly of the whale. Speaking of cooking fish. Joan, I'm looking for you. Let me see if I can find you gallery wise. There you go. And I am going to make you a spotlight video. And then I'm also pausing, okay?
Okay.
Zoom the recording. It's all yours.
Okay. I don't have a title that I'm happy with for this, so I will go titleless. Break free from the marriage of two minds that never was, no longer tethered. Drown it in the waters of the river Isis, dropped from the skull as you pull your way to the far bank.
Wow,
Ooh,
I love that.
love that. Thank you.
Wonderful
That's
job. Well,
awesome.
that's a powerful poem. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, I have to say sometimes waiting on the right title is like a key thing. And I love when somebody just has a knack for it, you know, read poem after poem where
Right?
you're just like, come on. Because as they say, that's your prime real estate, right? That is your entry. So keep waiting, Laura. Find a, you know, one that is worthy of that poem. Christy, I'm headed your way.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. There you go. And I think, let me pause by recording. So it's to you, Lynn. It's all
Okay.
yours.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is Lilith Tries Online Dating. Well past the first blush of feminine decline, centuries past, in fact, looking only 62. Retired from the night shift and thirsting for comfort, consolation, Lilith considers the possibility of long-term companionship. She yearns to be half of an old couple, to live with a man tolerating his habits with an annoyance close to affection, trusting that he will endure her with similar warmth. Incessant as the ocean waves, this need laps at her feet. For pity's sake, her latest crop of girlfriends has died or gone to Florida. The road ahead blurs. Arthritis rusts her gears. Worst of all, those pratfalls into the pool of forgetfulness and the attempts to laugh them off. So Lilith does what other single women do. She signs up for an online dating service, a Jewish one, an odd choice for one to whom the tradition has been cruel, maligning her as the witch of midnight sex. But the great chain of Jewish being means something to Lilith. She is stubborn that way, even though she knows that there are many fine Gentiles out there, and everyone is mixing nowadays. She uploads a fairly recent photo, lists herself as divorced, no children, lies about her age, posts a profile that makes no mention of her lusty past, no clue that her fountain has run dry. Soon the flirts, the looks, the messages pour in. Hope begins to peck its way out of its tough shell. She feels like a woman again. And this is how it unfolds. First date, coffee, during which the fellow goes on about himself. Second date, pizza. Here, various warning lights flash on the get to know you dashboard. But these Lilith chooses to ignore. Third date, dinner, following which the guy requests sex or a timeline for same. I'm a guy, Steve or Jeff says, his denim bumping up against her. But as soon as she tells Steve or Jeff that she doesn't want to rush, it's goodbye and good luck. Lilith knows that a man's desire surges, but his days are few. She, on the other hand, will live for generations. She prays, not really believing in divine intervention. Then in a generation to come, a man might invite her for a third date, demanding nothing. A fourth date, demanding nothing. A fifth, requesting the same nothing. Finally, out of gratitude and relief and a sense of being understood, she will fall into his arms. He will comfort and console her as she will comfort and console him. And then perhaps the fountain play again in the desert of all those years. Thanks.
Very
Oh,
nice.
awesome.
I
Thank
knew
you
it.
so much. I'm so glad you read. And I don't know, the comments in here were saying, heard this the other night, Marjorie wrote this and laughed out loud, and again now.
Oh, thank you, Marjorie.
That's awesome. Shirley, I'm headed your way and I will make you the spotlight. Please let me know if you would like me to pause the recording, or is it okay to record?
Thank you. I'm ready. I'm from Pittsburgh, so you'll see in my poem that I have Mr. Rogers, and then I added a stanza about the Tree of Life Synagogue in Oakland. My poem is Dear Mr. Rogers. I remember the time I found my goldfish floating at the top of the tank, and you told me death happens in this life. I didn't want to accept that fact, but you helped, even said a prayer when I buried him under the rose bush. You were there to comfort me when I feared being sucked down the drain during my bath, or down the toilet when I flushed. You always knew the right thing to say. In September, when the plane crashed into the World Trade Center, you were there, told me parents would keep me safe. When I sat cross-legged on the carpet beside brother, you said there was a holy space between the TV and us, and I believed you. Each day you entered my living room smiling, slipped into the cardigan your mother knitted for you, zipped it up the front, then halfway down again. When you changed from loafers into sneakers, I wished that I could loop and tie my laces the way you do. You smiled and said, you can, keep practicing. Tonight, I stand outside the synagogue in Oakland. My candle wavers in the wind and rain. The tree of life's inverted, roots in heaven, branches here on earth. Look to the helpers, you remind me. I promise to join in nurturing the almond, believe it will blossom again in spring. Mr. Rogers, I know Daniel's striped tiger and King Friday, you're still only a trolley ride away. See you in the neighborhood. You're special. I like you just the way you are.
Oh, oh, that's lovely.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you
Well,
for that. One of my graduate school professors survived that attack, and I just can't remember. I don't know how to get a hold of him, and I just can't imagine what that must have been like for him or anyone else.
Yeah, very true. Shirley, several people are writing into the chat section, so I do want to let you know. Karen wrote, oh, I love the letter to Mr. Rogers with thanks for a lifetime of feeling safe. It's wonderful. Lisa wrote, sweet. And Lynn wrote, Shirley, lovely Mr. Rogers poem. And Karen also said, Shirley, that poem warmed my heart. Thank you for sharing it
thank
with
you.
us. I'm going to Susanna, and if you missed when she did a book launch here, you're in for a treat. Dead Shark on the N Train was a blast, and I always love having Susanna read. So I am coming your way, Susanna.
Okay, thank
And all yours.
you. So this is from Dead Shark on the N Train, although I don't think I read it when I did that reading. And this talk about prompts. This poem was actually prompted by a piece of junk email which I got repetitively for a while, and the subject line of the email is the title of the poem, which is your book ready for Hollywood? I get these solicitations weekly and have to say no, though I adore Hollywood and would gladly play myself on the silver screen if Madonna were not available, because I've already been played by so many others. That's a pun, which is obvious in my poems about love. I'd like the chance to get myself noticed by producers who, it's generally acknowledged, rarely read books, never mind poetry books. Action, romance, roll the film. Well, it's not really film anymore, but I'm ready to be digitally cinematic after all these workshops on visual imagery. I'm ready to be my own objective correlative. I'm ready to sell myself to people who can't be bothered to read my poems, since that constitutes most of the world, who couldn't be bothered to read even a treatment of my book or a pitch sheet or a sentence or two. I want to be on ink tip. I need an alien or superhero or shark in my poetry book to make it more interesting. Here I am, you people, you whom I don't even write for. And by you, I don't mean you guys, I mean who sent it.
Awesome, Susanna. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, Christy wrote, I want to be on ink tip, and Joanne wrote, wow. And then Karen wrote, oh, Susanna, I love the voice of this poem. The spirit of the narrator is delightful. Well, y'all have just been a joy. I have really enjoyed open mic, and Marjorie, you really just set a lovely tone today. And everybody that was here, once again, I say it, my Thursday is the highlight of my week, and I want to thank y'all for being here. Thank you so very much. And Marjorie, I look forward to getting a postcard, so I'll send you an email.
Okay, great.
And likewise, if you didn't, oh, Marjorie, Robbie, Joan, Laura, Rob wrote everybody's name. Thank you for sharing. I enjoyed your work immensely. You may read this in the voice of Morgan Freeman. I would if I could, Rob. I'm so sorry. And then Dawn wrote, thank you, love the open mic. What a joy, guys. Be well, and thank you so very much.
You.
Thank you,
everyone.
Malika.
Good to see so many of you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malika, too. Thank you, Malika.
Oh, my pleasure.
And
Great to
Marjorie,
see you
wonderful
again.
reading.
Oh, and Marjorie.
Great reading, Marjorie.
This was like a party with the best people on the planet.
Right?
That
I
was so much
know.
fun.
I know.
Good.
I think
Inviting
it's something
me.
in the joy that everybody brings, and man, the poetry, just knockout stuff. So thank y'all. That is awesome. So
Bye.
inspiring.
Have a good
Be
week.
well.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Everybody.